people's journeys. Cool. Okay, let's go. Oh, can you do it with your dishes? Mr. Renata Nepe. Hai
Hello,
te peha.
kei te ora hau.
Rawe te rongo.
A koe?
Ai, kei te pai. Pai ngā piro. Pai ngā piro i te pōnei.
Wena te mea nui.
Ana. Okay, so I want to find more of our deal speakers because I think we kind of get real shallow kind of understanding of people, just based on their content. Kind of get to know them a bit better as I've kind of experienced doing more lives. So, first question, ko wai koe, nā wai koe, no hea koe?
Is that apartheid to me? Sorry. Is that apartheid to me?
Yes, it's apartheid to you. This is a Patapatai or uinga.
Oh, there we go, sorry, whia mai anō.
Ko wai koe, nā wai koe, no hea koe?
Ko Renata hau. Nā ngā tipuna hau o Paraurangi, o Kahungunu, o tū whakairi ora, no ngā iwi o te whānau punui Ngāti Porou, me Ngāti Kahungunu whānui.
Rawe. So we'll try to keep this in English just so kia mohi wai te marea. What is your mita and what are some of the key differences in your mita compared with others?
Well, that's an interesting question, eh? I feel like my mita is a twist between Ngāti Porou kitchen reo and the modern day kahungunu reo.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what are the differences between that and kind of pan tribal reo?
I think for me, I love to keep my whatever reo I'm using and whoever I'm in front of. I like to keep it relatable to the context and relevant, I guess. So I'm not going to be trying to speak thesis reo if I'm just kicking back with a few friends over some beers, but it changes depending on the environment I'm in.
I love it. Thank you, Ewa. When did you start your reo journey?
So my whānau wasn't a real speaking whānau growing up, but I got to spend a lot of time on the marae with my kaumātua. Those of you who don't know quickly, my grandparents brought me up, so I was immersed in the going to kaupapa on our marae, particularly in Ngāti Porou. Although our home was here in Hastings, most of my time was sitting at the feet of my kaumātua on Hine Maure marae. My family, though, was like the gathering hunters of our marae, so we went to the reo speakers at all. But because I was a young child, basically the marae raised me, so mine was just observation and sitting, and that's how I sort of learned. It wasn't directly from my own grandparents or my own immediate whānau, but my first memory as a 2, 4-year-old was that between there and Manuaniki, actually, there in Taumarenui. So my great-grandparents on my father's side raised me, and my grandparents on my mother's side raised me. In terms of deliberate focus on te reo Māori, it wasn't until I was 14. 14, my nanny was a kaiako at Te Arahau, Te Kurukapa Māori o Te Arahau, and one day I said to her, at the time I was going to Karamu High, at the time I said to her, Nan, can I come to your school? And she turned around to me and she was blatantly honest, and she said, no, you don't know your reo. And that was like a pivotal point in my life. That was like a, holy shit, a dagger to the heart. Like, my nanny's telling me I don't know my language, what the hell? And so from that point, I actually left Karamu High School. I'd left home already, so I was in the care of, between my father and my grandparents. And so I initiated the signing out of Karamu High School. And so I left just after I turned 14, and I went to Kahurangi Māori Dance Theatre. And it was from the age of 14 and that moment in my life where I changed the people that I surrounded myself with and the places that I put myself in, namely Kahurangi Māori Dance Theatre, which was the performing arts aspect of Te Ao Māori, and all the friends that I decided to hang with from that point all come out of Te Kurukapa Māori o Ngāti Kahungunu ki here taonga. And so from then, from when I was 14 till now, I'm 27, I had the same set of best friends who kōrero Māori, and that's what my life and my whānau's life revolve around, is te reo Māori, te ao Māori. So that's just a small snippet. into
That's really cool, Ren, because that was going to lead into our next part, which is talking about your real journey. And what I got from that was, to make sure that you find people, like-minded people, people who are passionate about te reo Māori to surround yourself with. So, because you just become a product of that excellence, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I think something that people take for granted is the huge effect that it has on you when you put yourself around ill speakers. A lot of people who desire to obtain te reo Māori, they think it's just about taking a 1 year course or a 3 year course, and all of a sudden you're going to wake up one day and be proficient in te reo Māori. But it's actually a
Yeah,
lifestyle change. Like the gym, like nutrition, it's a huge lifestyle change that you've got to commit to. Otherwise, te reo Māori isn't going to come as fast as you want it to come.
it's a bit of a grind, eh?
It's a grind. It's a grind.
They There's this whakaaro that gets put into my head, and maybe this is just a little bit off topic, but they say that art. What we typically think of art is that you need to be creative. When you typically think of science, you need to be persistent,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And actually, the whakaaro was we have to change that around, where actually you have to be persistent in art and creative in science.
That's
I like
it.
that.
I mean, I'm a low key artist myself, and again, in my circle of friends, there's some really good artists amongst ourselves. One thing I hear all the time is that they muck up more than they create magic, and so it's about the process, and it's about understanding that you've just got to carry on, persist, be consistent, and eventually something amazing will come from it. It's not about creating magic every time because it's not going to happen like that. But what you have to do is fall in love with the process.
Fall in love with the process. I love that. That's a great little gem for us to take.
Yeah.
Can we pin that somehow? I don't know how to do that, but
Someone pin that, Pano. Someone pin that.
okay. So our next part is what have been some of the challenges that you've faced in your journey?
I think the biggest thing for me, because over the last, 14, that's about 13 years now, I think the biggest challenges for me is finding kayako who would dedicate their whole selves to me. And what I mean by that is when you have access to mātanga reo and kaupapa reo that are, literally at our fingertips, sometimes these kaupapa don't reciprocate the struggle. Because, as we know, we have to live, we have to go to our jobs, we have to pay our bills, we have to support our whānau and feed our whānau and clothe them, feed them. But I think in terms of te reo and obtaining te reo Māori, it is a, what do you call it, a commitment. And sometimes that means leaving your full-time employment. Sometimes that means giving up all other commitments in your life. And that's something very hard. So for me, I've tried to dive into kaupapa specifically here in Kahungunu, of which I haven't been able to fully commit to because I've had to feed my whānau. I've had to carry on with my career. So that's probably been the biggest thing. And I feel like what's come with that is stereotypes and judgment, unconscious judgment, I guess. We are, like, don't get me wrong, my life and my wife's life is 100%, I believe, 100% dedicated to our Māori, not just te reo, but all of it in its entirety. But sometimes it comes across as actually, nah, he doesn't really care, so I'm not going to try anymore, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've had the best of the best, but I feel like in some form I've let them down because I've had to commit more to sort of my employment or my career, or to kapahaka. So that's been a challenge for me. Showing those mātanga reo that I actually am committed to the reo, that's hard. That's hard to make them understand that. Yeah.
Mātua rā kua tātou tabariki. Nā reira, ka whakaia hau ki a koe, i rā tūwhai āhuatanga.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose that kōrero can really resonate. Just to go back to one of your kōrero which was about the pressure that you feel being in the space with people that are speaking te reo Māori, the pressure, for you to get to that level as well. And I think what really comes out of that is the shame of actually not participating, firstly, but also the shame of getting things wrong.
Yeah.
And actually, I mean, having that whakaaro that, we have to know mai te hapa.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one thing that we overlook sometimes, when we're on our real journey. We just hope that, it can be a hop, skip, and a jump to fluency. But actually, there's that real shame that comes with this whole process.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool that you touched on that.
Yeah.
And thanks for that quarter. That was really cool. What resources have been helpful in your journey?
Um, Resources. I think you can't get past tangible. You can't get past physical. And what I mean by that is creating deliberate time to go and meet with real speaking friends and whānau to go over coffee, making time on weekends to have wānanga, immersing yourselves in those spaces where te reo Māori just flows. I think those are the biggest resources and the most underestimated, I think. You can get all the books in the world, you can get all the worksheets in the world, you can get the best real speakers, give you the email and give inspiration that way. But what's going to help you, that I feel, what will help you in the most effective way is implementation. Implementation, making deliberate time in your life to go out and find these spaces where real Māori is flowing, because too many times do we say, oh, I'm busy, I've got work on Saturday, or oh, I'm busy, I'll be doing this. But why don't we rewrite the script and say, actually, no job, I'm too busy, I've got a real wānanga, or I've got a real catch up with my friends. So I think the best resource is human resource.
Human
Making
resource,
time.
changing our mentality, perhaps.
Yeah,
I like that quarter in terms of putting our tikanga, our reo Māori at the forefront, and actually everything else has to build around that
yeah.
rather than the opposite way. So that's
Exactly.
that's wicked. But anyway, would that be the same sort of advice that you would give to someone starting out on their reo journey?
Yeah. People may not know, but I've lectured Te Reo Māori for Te Whare Wānanga Awanuiarangi for a long time now. The biggest advice I give to my tauira is that you have to welcome the fact that it's a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
You have to you have to figure out what in my spaces in my life, work, social, communal, personal, in those areas, what is enhancing my real journey? What is that? What in those spaces is contributing to my real journey and me obtaining my real? That's when you have to be honest with yourself and give yourself a small reality check, I think. Because a lot of my tauira over the years have told me things like, oh, I don't really have anyone to speak reo to, or I don't really have anyone at work that knows te reo Māori. And the answer's right in that. You have to find those spaces. And I know for some it may seem impossible, like, hey, I can't get a job where people speak Māori, it just may seem impossible, but at the end of the day, those are the sacrifices and the lifestyle changes we need to look at making. Otherwise, it's going to be you pushing a ton of bricks up a hill. It's not going to be easy at all. So, yeah, I think the biggest part of a real journey, and depending on how fast you want to obtain your real, it's about being really honest with yourself and giving yourself a reality check and saying, hey, actually, at work, my friends that I hang out with, my whānau, how are they helping me on my journey? And if not, what changes can I make?
Absolutely loving that. Actually, to build these sort of changes within our life, our actual lifestyle and the way we live.
Yeah.
Because you're right. When I wanted to participate in the Mahuru Māori, and I was like, how am I supposed to participate when no one at my work speaks Māori?
Yeah.
Well, the answer isn't actually that. The answer is finding a place where you can do that, where you can, mātua ko te reo Māori.
Koira. Koira.
So I love that whakaaro and actually the sacrifices that it has to take. There are sacrifices it's going to burn,
Yeah.
but you have to give something to get something, I suppose, in this situation. So love that korero e wā. Very, very helpful. I'm hoping that people in the muka kōrero, the comment section, are taking on some real gems. But yeah, I think we've come in with a bit of a bang with our counsellor, Renata Nepe. But I'm not done with my questions. Okay, so this is kind of on the same level, so I'm just going to pass a couple of these questions. But changing the tide a bit, kei te huri te tai, for what is your favourite whakatauki or whakatauaki, and tell us about it. Or just one of them.
I think very simply, hoki ki o maunga kia pūrea koe e ngā haua tāwhiri mātea. And just reflecting on recent events, it's very important to take time to refresh yourself.
Kia ora.
And I think it's very timely that I bring up this whakatauki. And you can look at this whakatauki as word for word, as a word for word translation, but reading between the lines, what it tells me is that it's always good to take a break. And I think I shared this on my live this morning. Too often do we pass up opportunities or deliberate effort to take a break, and thus leading into months and upon years, we get to a place where we start to burn out, and we sort of become in denial, and we just keep trying to push and push and push. So I think it's important to take rest, te whānau, to revive yourself, to take time out for your hauora and your health. Ensure you're giving to your tinana and you're not just giving out to others and everyone else is taking from you, but take time to ensure that you're nourishing not just your tinana physically, but spiritually, psychologically, and socially as well. So, yeah. Hoki koe ki o maunga kia pūrea e ngā hau a tāwhiri mātea. There's a real gem in that.
Really, really great advice. Thank you, Oa. So we were just talking about the maramataka, and one of the wānanga that we had come about was we're talking about the times of the month where you have to focus all of your energy just on yourself. And those are if we were looking by a Waikato naming of things, there would be your whiro, your tirea, and your aruoa.
Yep.
Have a look where those are in the month, and those are the spaces where you can go pamper yourself, just look after number one, because it's so important, you know. I've had a friend other than Dewey who put everyone before themselves, and it was at their detriment. So absolutely hear that kōrero. That is just very important, that sometimes you just need to step back from the kaupapa and think about looking after yourself.
Koira.
That's really cool. Okay, favourite kiwaha, kirehu or kianga?
Reheko. Rangatahima. Reheko. Let's go. Or let's go, as they say. I think that's really, it's contextual, that. Let's go. He mea whakakipakipai, just something that's encouraging of others to, whatever they're doing, to give it your all, you know, give it your all. Don't be half pie committed to whatever you choose to do in your day, whether that be just from waking up in the morning to brushing your teeth, to wiping the pikare out of your eyes, to having a nice nutritious breakfast. Whatever you're doing, do it well, do it hard, you know, and ensure you understand the reason why you're doing it and the benefits that you get from whatever you're doing. So yeah, rehe ko, let's go, rangatahima.
And now, Ren, I've just joined you on your weight loss journey. I've got to lose about 13 kgs in about 6 months. So we are on the same waka at the moment with our weight loss journey. So rehe ko.
Rehe ko.
Okay, we're not done. Now I'm going to skip a couple of questions because I think they might be a bit hohonu. But what? How long do you have?
I'll give you 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes. Okay, I want to ask some of the questions that right on the top of the dome. What is a reo hapa that grinds your gears?
One just off the top of my mind, whakahangu I muri I te me. So using passive kupu after or following the word me, that pisses me off.
Well, we would just seen one of those in the corner. And I was like, oh, shots fired.
Yeah. Not singling you out, whoever you wrote that, but I hear it a lot, and I even hear it from my own lecturers. I hear it from Mātanga Reo, and I hear it from actually some that have come out of Te Panikiretanga as e kāwhiro. It's a very simple mistake, but then again, I can be watching Te Karere sometimes, and I hear them using it on there, and so I'm just like, what the hell?
So just for people to know that rule, Ren, would you like to explain?
So let's take the word awhina. If we pacify the word awhina to awhina tia mai ahau, help me. If I was to put it in front of the word me, I wouldn't say me awhina tia mai ahau. I would say me awhina ahau or me awhina mai ahau. Ka pai? So yeah, passive following the bloody me is just, grinds my gears.
That's a bit of like emphatic agents. What are they called? Nana e, mana e. Those sort of things as well, where you just too mahi iti.
Aye.
Ka pai. That's awesome. Okay. Should wahine be allowed to speak on the marae?
Look, I go back to, we have a kawenata kawa ki roto Ngāti Kahungunu, and I used to have the book around here somewhere, but I've misplaced it. And it was from, I think, 1984, where all of Ngāti Kahungunu kaumātua at the time congregated upon Te Mahia, and they discussed what the kawa of Ngāti Kahungunu should be. Within that book, I read that i whakaitia e ngā kaumātua o Tauawa, kia tū te wahine ki te whai kōrero. Mēnā ka whakai te marae.
Mena ka whakai te marae.
Yeah. So, personally, I think there's reasons why our people have put it that way, and from the old times to now, and I think it gets mixed up with that colonial idea of men always at the front. They're just an ego trip. I think they were getting mistaken, and it's an easy mistake to sort of come across. I think depending on the tribe, depending on the area you're in, will determine whether or not women should speak on the marae. Coming from Ngāti Porou, I grew up watching Nani Whai Maklachi kōrero on the marae, and she didn't give two rats asses about if she could or not. And te mana o te wahine like that, I've seen that ahua in all my nenis from Ngāti Porou, and I think it's a take on te tirohanga o te wahine and implementing the mana that they have. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely a locational thing, depending on what kōrero the marae bears. I personally wouldn't do it if I was to go into Te Arawa or to go up in Ngāpuhi, but I would definitely be okay with it with the Ngāti Porou. Actually, most of our iwi on Te Tai Ngāwhiti and Kahungunu. So yeah, I'm not on the fence, but it just depends.
Okay, well, I'm not the one being interviewed, so I won't give my answer, but I will tell a story about this, because my koro Aussie used to be, as you know, a pū kōrero. He was a wahapu, he was a kakataraha, he was all those sort of well-known things. But when he his tuahine, who was in their way was kind of older than him, she had the right to speak on the marae whenever she wanted. So when she got up, so there could be a moment where she would go milk the pigs, got her gumboots and dress on, and then just straight to the pai. You sit down, Tungani. I'm going to speak, and then she just spoke. So she had that mana to be able to speak, and so I actually have that kawenata, but I need to find it in one of my USBs.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, I think Koro Aussie was involved in that.
I also think, just before you carry on, I think it's because it's become so uncommon that wahine don't speak on the marae. It's just become a default belief that they shouldn't, and they will never be able to. But if we look back through things like that kawenata and our kōrero, our motiatia, there's slight nuances and indications that actually was all right and there was a natural thing. So we need to be careful. We just need to be careful.
Just on that, just touching on it, favourite pū kōrero?
Pai katoa ki au, ngā momo pēnei, Kingi Kiriona, Paraone Gloin, Papa Derek Lardali, ko rātou, ngā tino tauwira ki au. Who else? Let's go Kahungunu. Who in Kahungunu? For voice, I used to love listening to Uncle Tamahuata. Very sharp reo, very high pitched, loved it. Who else in Kahungunu? I'm being put on the spot here. I feel a bit pressured now. Ngā kai kōrero katoa Kahungunu, pai ki au. But yeah, era toko toru. Kingi, Paraone me Derek, ko rātou, aku whakaaweawe ki te whai kōrero.
So just for everyone that's in the muka kōrero, if you want to go listen to some beautiful speakers, there goes some ones for you. Okay, what are your goals? We'll kind of just wrap up sort of here, but I've got two more questions for you. Do you speak Te Reo Māori to your children or child? Yes. If so, tell us how this journey for you has been.
Yeah, and that's a good part actually. So my wife and I would say about 4 years ago, we ended up with 5 children, and they were my 5 younger siblings. At that time, we were very new to parenting, let alone adulthood. But in that aspect, they didn't grow up with Te Reo Māori. But we made it a priority in our house to incorporate Te Reo Māori in our everyday living. So because they didn't know Te Reo Māori, what our week to week looked like was small activities or competitions that involved learning kupuhau, that involved labelling our whare, more so the kitchen and the living area. There's a lot of things that we labelled, like the bench, tūpapa. A lot of kupu that we did here. Then they left us. And when we had our own daughter, she's now 2, just past 2 years old, her main language is Te Reo Māori. And I think some of our whānau, we become anxious that they won't know English and they won't be able to integrate themselves within society. And I think what we've seen so far is that it's absolutely not true. We only speak, I would say, hand on heart, hand on the Bible, whatever. I would say that I speak Te Reo Māori to my daughter 98% of the time. She's very bilingual though, and I think that's because she's immersed in a bilingual life. So although our effort at home is Te Reo Māori anake, she has her extended whānau, she has, when she goes out and sees her other cousins and other areas of life, she gets Te Reo Pākehā naturally. So our focus is hugely on Te Reo Māori. And simple things, like it might just be like morena, it might just be like kei te aha koe, breakfast, everything that we could use English in, like wow baby, or don't do that, or come on we're going, all those are in Te Reo Māori, and we make a deliberate effort to that because we know she's going to find Te Reo Pākehā elsewhere, and very easily as well.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. Last question for you. Thank you so much for your time, Ren. This has been really insightful, really cool to hear whakaaro on some of these things. What are your goals for your reo for the future? Kātahi. Ka rua, what do you hope to see in for Te Reo Māori in the future? We'll say that's a double barrel.
Yeah, pātai tuatahi. My goals would be to be able to stand along the likes of Pautemara, Paraone Gloin, the mātanga of Te Reo Māori, and not have an inch of anxiety in my bones. That'll be my goal, and I think that's around practice. That's around further learning, vocabulary, sentence structures, all of those types of things. My goal is to immerse myself into as much wānanga reo as I can. Namely, kaupapa like Te Pōkaitara, which is I guess a branch of Te Panekiretanga within Kahungunu. Kaupapa like that, I hope to be a part of, and then the end goal would be to eventually get to that space where I'm not anxious to stand on any paipai, no matter where I am in the motu. I'm not anxious to stand along any pū corridor that I stand along. On large, I'm all right, but if I was to ever get to a waharo and I can see Pautemara, then I'll definitely be shaking in my boots. So that's my goal for Te Reo Māori, is to be able to get to a point where I have no anxiety about my delivery, or don't have to question my capability of delivering Te Reo Māori in whai kōrero. Yeah.
Love that.
And the second question...
And the was, yeah. Oh, so kua rihita koe mo te pōkaitara?
Ka kaore wātea I te mea kei te whai au I taku tohu kai ako I tēnei tau. So kaore wātea, engari a tērā tau ka uru atu. Yeah.
Tērā te ko tāua tēnā. Kare au I uru I tēnei tau.
Yeah. Hea tō pātai tuarua?
Tuarua, what is your hope, or what do you hope for Te Reo Māori in the future?
I hope that Te Reo Māori becomes so accessible that our whānau who have no idea about what it is, who are Māori and who live in poverty and who are poor of culture, poor of their language, poor of te ao Māori in general, I hope it becomes so easy to access that they, in the future, hopefully in the near future, they turn to it and they realise its worth. They realise how valuable it will be to their day-to-day life, how valuable it will be to the advancement in their lives. Speaking from my own personal view, I have a lot of whānau siblings, first cousins, aunties, uncles, that have no idea about anything to do with te ao Māori, barely know how to say kia ora, which I think is really sad in the aspect that if you truly know who you are and you know who you are 100% and you're confident in it, whatever else you're doing in your life will only be enhanced. And I think if you know where you come from, you know where you're going to go. So I hope that for Te Reo Māori it becomes so accessible that our whānau turn to it and in turn enhance their life in the future. The uri whakaeke to come, their mokopuna to come, and even Karen there in the box. I hope she starts to learn Te Reo Māori too.
Oh, awesome. Brother, ngā mihi atu ana ki a koe. Patata te wā kia hoki atu koe ki te moe. Engari, waimari e ana tātou i a koe, ko tai mai ki tēnei pāhotanga mataora. Kia toha ene mā tauranga e tahi atu mea. Nā reire mihi atu ana ki a koe. Thanks, Ren, for joining us, Councillor Renata, for giving us some gems of advice about Te Reo Māori. So, look, it looks like the pilot worked. So thank you, Ren.
Beautiful pilot.
Yes. So hopefully we can make this a more ongoing thing. We're not going to have a karakia just yet because I'm going to continue yabbering. But Ren is going to get out of here. Hit it, buddy. No, thanks, Ren.
See you.
Ka